Hello and welcome to Emerging Technologies Conversations, and we have Cody Cook here today from Gilmour Space. Hello, Cody.
G'day Debbie, lovely to be here.
Tell me about Gilmour Space.
Yes, so Gilmour Space is an aerospace-based startup on the Gold Coast. So it was started around about 8 years ago by two brothers, James and Adam Gilmore. At the time, Adam Gilmore was an investment banker over in Singapore, and he wanted to come back to Australia and start to build out Australia's aerospace ecosystem here.
Right.
And as a result, they've started with building a few small rockets and working on rocket engine technologies. Then they've built bigger rockets, and then they've had some venture capital funding come into the business as well. And now we're building even bigger rockets, and we're looking like we're about 9 months out from launching our first orbital launch vehicle, which will be Australia's first sovereign-built and launched rocket.
That is so cool and amazing for Australia. So, but if we go back a bit, tell me a bit about you. How did you get into the space industry?
Yeah, well, as I was growing up, I actually didn't think it was going to be possible to work in Australia in space. So I remember being, I think it was about 15 years old, and I was looking at all the different options of what I could study at uni. And I was interested in space, but there was just no industry for it here. I'd have to move to the US, which I didn't really want to do at the time, or pick something else. So I went into robotics, and then I worked that for a little bit in the mining industry. Then I worked for Boeing here in Australia, started to get more involved in aerospace and space. I went back to uni and I did a master's in space engineering. And then I started working for space startups. So I did some work on satellites, I went and worked for the space agency, and now I'm here at Gilmour Space.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. And it's been a long process for you, but robotics, that's pretty cool. So what do you do now? I know you've recently got a job change.
Yes.
So you started off in what role?
I used to be responsible for putting the launch vehicle together. So coordinating the plan of how everything was going to plug in, how we'd test it, how we'd run our operations over it, how we'd pull it apart, ship it up to the launch site, do our dry and wet dress rehearsals, and then going through the launch campaign. I've now been put into a department here, and I'm leading the software, the electrical, the GNC, and the avionics department, or our Sega department. So a lot of scope there. And we've got a team of about 30 people here, all working on those various elements of the launch vehicle.
Wow, that's amazing. And in the future, or what do you see is the future of the space industry in Australia?
In Australia, the thing that the intersection that we have here, because Australia has a pretty deep space heritage, it's sort of been lost a little bit. But the other major industry here is our resources and mining industry, and that's going to be a massive part of what we do as Australians out in space. And what we've seen from the Australian Space Agency with the Trailblazer grants and the Foundation Services missions that have been planned is that Australia has all of this tech in autonomous mining equipment, in terms of remote operations. So I think that'll be something that we can really bring to the space industry.
Yes, definitely.
And having the launch capabilities to have space tugs or orbital transfer vehicles being developed here, to have satellites coming out of Australia, we have all the technology, we have all of the talent, we just have to apply it and demonstrate that we've got what it takes to actually deliver these platforms and capabilities.
Yeah, it's amazing for the future of Australians, for the new jobs that it will create. So what do you think of the fact that it does cost a lot of money to have a space agency or a space industry, but what does it bring to communities? And so we were talking before about research and development, and how can we take that research and development and use it to help, UN sustainable development goals, or how do we translate that research and development and use it here on Earth?
Yeah. The fascinating thing is a lot of people, when you say we're going to spend money on space, we're not jam-packing wads of cash into a rocket and launching it somewhere else. That's spending money here on research and technology,
That's right.
which is also applicable to down here on Earth. Like, we look at what we can do now with our communication satellite networks. We've got the ability for anyone, anywhere in the world to have broadband internet connection through Starlink and through some of the other services that we're seeing. And it is a common misconception that throwing money at space is depriving people here on Earth of being able to build out infrastructure or future industries. So, in terms of the sustainability element of that, one of the analogies that I like to use is around the space station, right? We are constantly here on Earth questioning our sustainability in terms of recycling and our consumption of fossil fuels and even our core utilities. The space station has to be sustainable by definition. The cost of transferring goods up and down makes it prohibitive to rely on unsustainable practices. So if we take the model of the space station and they recycle something like 98% of the water, and as the astronauts say that, today's coffee is tomorrow's coffee and will be the day after that as well. They're so focused on closed loop sustainability. Imagine if you took that and then you applied that down here on Earth and then scaled that out over the globe. Imagine what our sustainability footprint would look like. There is so much technology, that's just one example, but there's so much technology that we develop in terms of chasing our space ambitions that is so applicable on Earth.
Yeah, definitely. And I remember when they launched the X Prize, and one of the competitions was to how do we build, housing on Mars or whatever, but you can't take it. It takes too long, and it's too heavy to take blocks of bricks and things up there. How do you do that? So it's really getting teams, and it's global. Space is global.
Has to be it's even beyond global. When we start to become multiplanetary, space is just it's going to be as simple as jumping in a car and driving to your next door neighbor's place. It'll have that level of commonality in our lifestyle. It's sure, I'm going to go on a weekend away to Mars, or that's
weekend away to Mars.
We're going to have to have some pretty fast rockets if we're going to achieve that. But it's not beyond the scope of reality.
Well, maybe one of the moons is that.
Titan's looking pretty good right now. I might set up a retirement place there, something in the future.
Something like Wall-E or something.
Yeah. Well, let's hope we don't go too far down that path. It's pretty dystopian.
Yeah, it is. So what do you think is the future of space for Australia, or in general?
I think it's really important for us to become a multiplanetary species. I think it is appealing not just commercially. I think there's industries and a future out there that we haven't even had the chance to explore yet. I think it's also really important that we do that for the sake of just expanding the human presence. I believe that humanity is a good thing, and I want to see us go out and be able to explore more of the universe and to create some redundancy in terms of our home base. And the fun thing is just that we are inherently explorers. We like to travel, we want to learn more, we're curious creatures by nature, and I think that space is the next step in that final frontier.
Yeah, it is. Oh, fine. Yes, it is a bit Star Trek-y there. I think it is too. So it's amazing, the future. It's just open to our imaginations, really. But there are people working on it right now and working on it on the Gold Coast. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thanks.